Hello there, and welcome to Dream, Declare, Deliver. I'm your host, Chris Gorell, and this is a place where we talk about all the skills and tools needed to create a life worth living. And in this segment, we've been focusing on learning to feel, which is the title of a new book that I have coming out in August 15th, and is available on Amazon.com. But if you want it for a discount, you can contact the publisher, MSI Press. That's Mary Sam Indigo, msipress.com/orders/learning to feel, and you'll find it there. And you can get it at a 20% discount. But I'm not here to talk about the book. I'm here to talk about learning to feel and the nuances around our understanding of what emotions are, what feelings are, and how they are so beneficial to us in creating a life worth living. This past weekend, I had the great fortune of doing a workshop with a group of men at something called the Granite Men's Gathering, and we were talking about, in particular, about the warrior training and how warriors, most people believe that warriors are trained not to feel, that that they're numbed out, or that they objectify the enemy, so that it's possible for them to do battle or kill, as needed. And not feel the feeling of encountering another human being on the other side. But that's not what warrior training is about. What warrior training is about is actually a sensitivity training to a heightened awareness of our emotions, and the ability to stay present to those things that are going on inside of us, because emotions give us a huge insight into how we're functioning and how we're thinking. So let me reel back a little bit, wind back to some basics around this. So first off, you and I and every other human in this world do not see with our eyes. We do not hear with our ears. We don't taste with our mouth. We don't touch with our, feel with our fingers. Those are neural receptors, and all of that is translated in our brain. And so our brain is the great sense maker. It takes thousands and thousands, millions of data points through our retina, which are just neurons sitting there receiving impulses. And it takes that mosaic and makes it into an analog picture that you see and perceive on a daily basis. And it makes sense out of that based on what it knows. So the same thing is true with any input that we get, anything that is going on around us. As we perceive things, the job of the brain is to make sense out of it. If life is chaos and chaos is all around us, our brains are frantically trying to make sense out of what's going on. And how it makes sense is based on what it has as stored information, your experiences, the things that you've learned, the language that you have, the culture that you grew up in, the family of origin. All of those kinds of things are in the database, if you will, the stored memories of who you are and what the world is like. And so as you're perceiving things, it goes into that filtering system. It goes in through that filter, and then anything you say comes out through that filter. So we're not really seeing a fully accurate picture. Yes, you and I can look at a table and we can both say that's a table, this is a chair, and we'll agree on that sort of thing. But when it comes to the more complex elements of life, experiencing another person, experiencing a situation, knowing what's going on inside of ourselves, or knowing how to react and what we want to do in the next situation, those kinds of things are all filtered through that sense-making system called your brain. And that means that it's skewed in some way. It's partially biased by what you have or have not experienced. If you've never seen a king cobra, or what's that red and black, snake that's highly poisonous, or a water moccasin or something like that. If you've never seen that and you just see a snake, You don't know whether it's just a plain old garter snake or it's something that's highly deadly and could hurt you, and you should run away and stay away from it. Because you don't have that antecedent information. If you don't know, like for instance, the anthropologists tell us that the Carib Indians, the people who inhabited the Greater and Lesser Antilles in the Caribbean, they had no experience of humans with shiny chests and heads that were sparkling and shiny. They had no experience of canoes or boats with sails on the top of them, which they thought were clouds. So when the Spanish came on shore, the Carib, who normally were a very fierce, fighting, warrior type population, were dumbfounded. And it's said that the Spaniards made sport out of decapitating just numbed Carib as they came on shore. They found them easy victims and took over quite quickly. And that's because there was no antecedent in the Carib's mind of what that was coming on shore. What were they gods? Were they I mean, they're extraterrestrials. They didn't have that word back then, but they had no way to comprehend what it was. And so and some anthropologists say they may not even have seen them. They may not even have perceived them because there wasn't anything in their minds that would allow them to understand what that thing was. And so we're similar to that. We don't see what we don't see. We don't see what our brains aren't capable of seeing. So if we look interior, to the interior of our workings, how our mind works, one of the best ways to get a clue on that is through our emotions and our feelings. All right. And so one of the things I was doing at this weekend was, first teaching that cycle that we talked about before, how our beliefs shape or cause our thoughts. And our thoughts are what cause our emotions. Our emotions then are perceived through our bodily feelings, the things that we feel as a result of our emotions. And those feelings cause us to act in certain ways. The actions then create results, which then feed back into what we believe to be true or not true about whatever just happened. All right. So there's this cycle of going around. And one of the men looked at me and he said, I am angry at my wife. And I thought it was because she just pissed me off. She just did some things that got on my nerves and she did it on purpose. Or she, whatever. But he said, I didn't realize that the reason I was angry was because I had a set of thoughts and beliefs about me and about her and about how things should happen, and that she wasn't working according to those things. He said, I need to go home and apologize to my wife for copying such an attitude about her when it's actually me and my thoughts that were causing those feelings, and later on, he came up to me and put his arm around my shoulder and he said, you may just have saved my marriage, in that one little thing where we're actually paying attention to, I feel this way. I'm angry. I'm pissed off. I want to go, leave, get out of here. I don't want to talk to you anymore, whatever. When he inspected that and got back to what the understanding was that was behind the emotion, he was able to see his part in that. So when we say that the warrior does training on emotional intelligence and emotional awareness, what we're really looking at is how that warrior can use the feelings that are triggered by the emotions. It can use that awareness in the present tense, in the here and now, to say, there's something inside me, there's something going on about me. Because if I'm in battle, for example, and I have a visceral reaction, or I have some kind of emotional reaction to something that's going on, if my sensing in the back of my head is off base, because I don't understand what's going on, I don't have any antecedent thoughts about that, my thoughts and beliefs that are causing my emotion are causing an incorrect action. And so I will be doing the wrong thing. I may be reacting in the wrong way to this situation that may require something else of me as a warrior. So what the warrior training is all about is learning to uncouple what the emotion is, what the gut response is, to see what the emotion is behind that, what the thought is behind that, and what the belief system is that's going on in there, so that we know exactly, much more accurately, how to judge our feelings when we're in the heat of the moment. So one of the stories I read once was that a samurai warrior will spend upwards of 10 years learning flower arrangement. And while he is meticulously working on a Zen garden or a flower arrangement, or just getting that sprig of pine just right, or whatever it is, his master trainer comes up behind him with a sword and whacks him on the butt or whacks him on the head, and causes him to pay attention in the moment, because he needs to be totally sensorially aware of everything around him, 360 degrees around him all the time, and being present in that way, being present to how his body is reacting, what he's doing, what he's feeling, and what are the thoughts. And when I say thoughts, by the way, I'm not talking about a cognition that is a sentence long, or that's something that is that you're aware of. What I'm talking about are all subconscious. They're below the level of consciousness. They're down in here, but they're happening inside the brain all the time. Just like your brain is monitoring your pulse right now, your stomach and your indigestion, or your hunger for lunch, or dinner, or whatever time it is that you're watching this. Your brain is monitoring all those autonomic functions in your body all the time. You're not aware of that, but it's doing it. And in the same way, it's having all these thoughts. It's manufacturing emotions out of beliefs and thoughts all the time. So if we're off base with that, if we haven't trained ourselves to learn how to be more accurate with our seeing, our perceiving, and our sensing, our emotions and our feelings are going to be off base. They're going to be maybe a degree off, maybe 10 degrees off. We might be somewhat close, but not quite accurate. But that can be a life and death difference. I'm not a golfer, but friend of mine was a golf instructor, and so we went out one time. He invited me to be on a what's called a scramble. I'm dangerous on a golf course. I don't belong there. But he said, like, I'm a coach, and I'll coach you. And I said, oh, I'm very coachable. So so he had me hit a ball, and I'm strong and I'm big, and I hit it far, but I hit it far into the woods. And he said, so what I want you to do is just move your right foot 1 inch further forward. And I want you to, I had a hold of my grip here. He said, I want you to rotate your wrist just 1 degree, just a slight rotation forward. So now keep your eyes straight down, swing through the ball. And I hit it, and it went straight down the fairway, right down the middle of the fairway. So what that says to me is that a 1 degree difference right here at the beginning can put you either on the middle of the fairway, 270 yards down or 200 yards down, or it can put you in the woods, if you're off by 1 degree. The same is true of our emotions. The same is true of our beliefs and our thoughts. If we're off center, where we're going to end up is not where we want to be. So the whole system of training around emotional intelligence and around learning to feel is learning to understand that those feelings are an access point. And they tell you a lot about what your beliefs are, what your thoughts are, going into this. So let's take a couple of emotions, some ones that are common. Let's take, for example, love. Right, one of the great emotions. And again, the emotion itself is a very complex pattern of thoughts, beliefs, all those kinds of things together about who you are and who the other person is, or who, or how you are treated in the world, what you grew up with. If you've never experienced love in your family of origin or from your mom or something like that, you may not know how to love another person. If you've never experienced the warm feeling of a sense of the divine or something greater than yourself, you may not know that you can trust the world or you can trust the universe, because you've never felt that before. But if you've had that experience, and that's just something that feeds into that whole complex thing called the emotion, all those beliefs and thoughts that cause the emotion or manufacture the emotion, then the experience that you have, the feeling that you have, is a tingling in your chest or in your limbs or in your groin or whatever. You may feel attraction. You may feel warm all over. You may feel flushed in the face when experiencing first love or something like that. So when we feel that, what we can actually do is wind back to say, oh, that's the emotion love. What then is the belief and the thought that have manufactured that love? Love just doesn't come crashing upon us, and I am sure that all of you have attempted at some point to love another person who didn't get it, who didn't perceive it, because they may not have had the context for it, they may not have had the framing for it, or they may not have been receptive to, because of their belief system or what's going on in their heads, they may not have been receptive to what you were doing. I'll give you a very personal example. When my wife and I first started meeting with each other and seeing each other, she worked at the corporate headquarters of a company that I worked in the Boston office of. And we had met each other at a national conference of the company, and so we had been in contact, because I needed things that for the work that I did from her side, which was she provided all of the print materials and things like that, right? So at one point she tells me that she told me that she was interested in me, and she told me that she was attracted to me. I can stand here and swear on a stack of Bibles that I never heard that. I never heard it at all. And in fact, I thought I was being a stalker, being interested in her and trying to call her all the time. And I was afraid that she was going to get, put off by that. But I never heard from her. And so I want to look at, why did I not hear her gestures towards, or her comments that moved towards love? Why didn't I hear that? Well, the thought process and the belief process that was present in me at the time was, I'm not worthy of love. I like I had a failed marriage, and it was extremely painful, and that didn't go well. And so I had learned, a part of me was, I'm not good at this. I'm not worthy of it. And so that system was in play. When she said something of a loving nature to me, I never heard it. And I will swear that I never heard it. And she knows that she said it. So imagine, let's extrapolate that then to being alive and working in the world that we live in today. Extremely complex situations that are going on all around you. And you're perceiving those things. They're going through that filtration system called meaning making inside your head. And that's bumping into the beliefs that you have about yourself. Are you going to be accurate with the feelings that come out of that, out of that belief, thought, emotion sequence? Are you going to be accurate with that? Or is it going to be slightly a degree off center, 2 degrees, 10 degrees off center? That's the question. That's the training that we need to do in order to better feel and understand what our feelings are telling us about our emotions, beliefs, and thoughts, so that we can become more responsive and more effective in understanding the other person. Because we're not alone in this world. We're not solo actors. If you're a hermit, thank you very much. I'm glad you're watching, but I assume that most of us are in relationship, at work, we're in relationships at home, and we're in relationships with friends out in society. And so we have to interact with other people. If what I'm talking about is going on inside you, and if what I'm talking about is going on inside the other person that you're trying to communicate with or be in relationship with, how many degrees of complication does that make? What it means is that when it comes to communication, we're basically screwed. We're basically in a difficult situation because of the meaning making that goes on inside of us. So I perceive a situation, right? It goes in through my eyes and ears and my senses, and it goes into my meaning making system, and I say, oh, this means that, and therefore I'm going to say such and so. Well, my speech comes out through the same filter system that my perceptions came in through. Right. And of all the things that are going on inside my head, what comes out of my mouth is only a loose approximation, I call it, of what's going on inside my head. And it's a loose approximation because my mind has chosen certain words to use in expressing what it thinks is going on. Those words come out, go into your ears and eyes and so on, and through your filtration system, and makes meaning, inside your mind, in which case you respond by selecting certain words through the filter again and speaking them back to me. So we have here several errors of translation that are possible to happen. Now, most of our words we agree on. Many things that we say are simply, I say there's a dog, and you say, yep, there's a dog, and we can get along fine, and we don't stumble and fall too often. But when it comes to the more complex stuff, the really deep stuff, we can be off, we can miss it, we can not hear it. We may say something that lands because of the choice of word, has a buzzword in it for somebody else that we're talking with, and it lands the wrong way. How many times have you been in a conversation with your partner about, what we plan to do tomorrow? And then you get up and you start getting ready to go do whatever it was that was. And your partner comes in and says, why are you doing that? And you say, because that's what we talked about last night. And you say, that isn't what we talked about last night. We talked about this. I don't know about you, but that happens to me a lot, and I'm so grateful that I have a wife who's understanding of that process, because there are often times when we miscommunicate. We say things that we assume each other understands totally, and then when we go to take action on them, we're in different places on that. And what I find over time is the more time I spend with Sarah, the more time we're together, like when we're on vacation, those error of judgments, those mistakes of understanding don't happen near as much as when she's busy at work and I'm busy at work, and we haven't touched bases a lot during the day. There's a lot of miscommunication in that. So with practice, we get better at aligning our understandings of each other. With practice on learning to feel, the warrior gets better at judging the situation, knowing how to respond to the situation. With practice on learning how to feel, you and I get better at learning what's going on inside of ourselves and how we can correct, rotate the wrist 1 degree, and move ourselves in the direction that we want to go. If we're interested in creating a life worth living, part of the formula is knowing the inside of you and what it is that's really truly there. This past weekend at the gathering with the men, we were talking about legacy. What is your legacy? What do you want your legacy to be? And when I talk with people about legacy, the person they always wanted to be, or how they want to leave this world, or whatever, a lot of times my sense is it's just made up crap. It's a nice idea. It's a really beautiful idea, but it doesn't track with who that person is being, and how they're actually being on a day-to-day basis. It's a thing that's a wish that's out there that they think is a nice thing to say, and certainly is something to aspire to, but it may be 10 degrees off of phase from where they're at right now. And so what we were talking about in terms of legacy for each man was, how do you understand more fully who you are right now and what needs to change in your belief structure so that you can end up not in the woods, but 200 yards down the fairway, dead center, on target for the legacy that you want to do, that you want to have. So the cool thing about this whole practice is that none of this going on inside our head, none of that is iced in or set in concrete. It's all mutable. If I used the example in the last segment about when I was a kid, and I thought I had done something wrong and bad, and I carried that memory, which was very vivid with me all the time, all the way into my adulthood. And when I learned that that wasn't true, I had the opportunity to go back and change the script, to flip the script around so that I now understand myself not to be a nasty, angry kid, but rather a loving, caring person with who's full of compassion and driven to do good things. That's what's possible here when we're able to pull back the curtain on the feeling to emotion to thought to belief, back, reverse engineering what's going on right now into understanding what my belief systems are. And are those belief systems serving me? Are those beliefs accurate? Are those beliefs, things that we would defend or stand on as we're trying to create the life worth living, or the life that we have of our dreams? We want to know what our beliefs are. If I have a constant belief inside me that I'm not worthy of a life worth living, guess what my success rate would be? What are my chances of actually creating that life worth living if I think I'm unworthy? So I need to rewrite that script. I need to rewrite that belief. And that means that I need to build new experiences of doing things from that place of being in compassion, so that the more I act from my compassion and get results that show that my compassion has an impact on other people, the more I believe that I am a good person, a compassionate person, and the more my thoughts are going to direct emotions in that direction. So this loop of belief to thought to emotion to feeling to action to result to belief, that cycle is something that we can use to reverse engineer and get back in touch with what our belief systems are, so that we actually can have a more accurate perception of the world, a more accurate emotional response to the world. Our feelings and actions are aligned then with that belief system that is more accurate and more appropriate for what we want to be as a human being. And we're able to start engineering our life as the sole author of that life, and somebody who's creating a life worth living for ourselves. So that's it for today. I just wanted to kind of dig into why warrior training includes emotional training, and what's available when you do that. Until next time, enjoy and live that life. Go for it.